It is 17 hours. The day is drawing to a close. You open your banking application once more, observe the balance, and that old, familiar sensation tightens in your chest. It is not panic. It is worse than panic. It is a silent resignation, that internal voice saying, "It is just how it is, it never changes, it will never change." You worked today. You exerted yourself, you did everything within your reach, and yet the number on the screen does not reflect the magnitude of the effort you invested. Let me tell you something now before anything else. The problem does not lie in your effort. The problem lies in something much deeper that effort alone will never resolve. It lies in a blockage that operates at the level of belief, at the spiritual level, at the level of the energetic field you project onto everything you touch. And this blockage has a name, an identifiable cause, and most importantly, a solution. Today I shall reveal to you the spiritual decree of 17 now. A decree that, when pronounced with real intention at the correct hour, with the correct internal state, begins to move the field of prosperity in your life in a way that you will be able to observe in the days that follow. But before reaching the decree, I must show you why it works. Because if you pronounce words without understanding the mechanism behind them, the result will be zero. And you deserve to understand what you are doing and why. Stay until the end, because in the middle of this video, I will reveal what is the greatest spiritual blockage to prosperity that operates silently in the lives of those who work hard and remain without financial results. And when you recognize it, you will understand much about your history with money. First, there must be an honest conversation regarding the relationship between spirituality and money in Brazil, because this relationship is confused, contradictory, and full of layers that no one dares to touch head-on. On one side, there is a very strong religious heritage that associated wealth with sin. The idea that money is the root of all evil, that the rich do not enter the kingdom of heaven, that material suffering is proof of spiritual virtue. This vision penetrated so deeply into Brazilian culture that most people carry in a completely unconscious manner the belief that being good and being prosperous are things that do not align. That to be spiritually blessed, one must be materially poor. On the other side, there is a wave of prosperity theology that went to the opposite extreme and began to use faith as a money-making machine, as if God were a cosmic bank that responds to transfers of faith with automatic financial transfers. Neither of the two visions serves you, and neither of the two is complete. The vision that truly works, which is aligned with the deepest spiritual traditions and with what neuroscience and psychology confirm, is much more sophisticated. Money is energy. It is a medium of exchange that flows or is blocked according to the internal state of the one who seeks it. Not by magic, by the real dynamics of the field, of cognition, of behavior, and of the alignment between what is thought, what is felt, and what is done. When internal conflict regarding money exists, when you consciously want it, but unconsciously believe you do not deserve it, that it will corrupt you, that it will distance you from those you love, or that it is above what you can have, this conflict blocks the flow. And no decree, no prayer, and no extra effort resolves a blockage that is operating at the level of unexamined belief. Therefore, the decree of 17 must come after an internal cleansing, and that is exactly what will happen now. There is research conducted by Professor Carol Dweck of Stanford University that changed how psychology understands human potential. She identified two types of mindset: the fixed mindset and the growth mindset. The fixed mindset believes that capabilities are determined and immutable. You are born with what you have and will go as far as you can. The growth mindset believes that capabilities are developed through effort, learning, and persistence, that the starting point does not determine the finishing point. What Dweck demonstrated is that mindset is not just an attitude. It literally shapes the decisions a person makes, the risks they agree to take, the opportunities they recognize or ignore, and the results they achieve over time. In the field of prosperity, the fixed mindset manifests exactly like that voice you heard when you opened the banking application at 17 Wow. It is just how it is. It never changes. It will never change. This voice is not describing reality, it is creating reality. because what the nervous system believes to be true, it treats as a behavioral directive. And behaviors guided by this belief systematically confirm what the belief already expected. This is what psychologists call a self-fulfilling prophecy. You believe you will not prosper, so you unconsciously avoid risk situations that could lead you to prosperity, and the result confirms the original belief. The cycle closes, and it repeats, and it deepens. The spiritual decree of 17-0 is not magic words. It is the daily practice of installing a new directive in the nervous system. A directive that tells the brain and the spiritual field, I am open, I am capable, I deserve, and I act based on this. But there is a blockage deeper than the fixed mindset. A blockage that comes not only from your personal history, but from your lineage. And I promise to reveal this blockage to you. It is what comes now. If you feel that this content is arriving at the right time, subscribe to the channel and activate the bell. The work we do here goes far beyond superficial motivation. It is real transformation with roots. The greatest spiritual blockage to prosperity that operates in the life of one who works hard and remains without financial results is called unconscious loyalty to the poverty of the lineage. This is a concept from systemic psychology and family constellations based on decades of clinical work with families from diverse cultures. And it is especially relevant in Brazil, where most families carried for generations the experience of poverty, of scarcity, and of the struggle for survival. Here is how it works. When you are a descendant of a family that lived in poverty for generations, your unconscious develops a deep loyalty to that history. Not because you chose it, but because belonging is a primitive instinct, and belonging to your family, to your group of origin, means at some unconscious level being like them. So when you begin to prosper, when money begins to enter in quantities that exceed what your family knew, something inside you feels danger, not real danger. The symbolic danger of standing out, of growing beyond what your group of origin grew, of becoming different from your own. And this symbolic danger generates sabotage. You spend the money before saving it. You make poor financial decisions precisely at the moments when you could advance. You involve yourself in situations that consume the resources you were building. You are generous to the point of impoverishing yourself so as not to distance yourself from those who remain at the same financial level. This is not moral weakness. It is unconscious loyalty operating as a mechanism of belonging, and it is only possible to overcome when it is named, recognized, and consciously questioned. The question that unlocks this pattern is, does my prosperity harm anyone in my family? The honest answer in most cases is no. But the unconscious acts as if it did, and as long as you do not confront this belief directly, it continues to operate. To prosper is not to betray your origin. It is to honor everything your ancestors built by taking the lineage to a higher level. It is to say, they did what they could with what they had. I do what I can with what I have. And what I have is more, because they arrived first and cleared the path. This is the resignification of lineage, and it is the ground upon which the decree of 17 must be built to have real effect. Now let us speak about the hour. Why 17? It is not arbitrary. And just as the hour of 05:55 represents the opening of the day, the hour of 17 represents the closing of the daily cycle. And this moment has a specific spiritual and neurological relevance that most people completely waste. At 17:1, the workday is ending, or is in its final phase. The brain is processing the volume of information, decisions, and interactions it experienced since the morning. The nervous system is beginning the transition from active mode to processing and integration mode. It is the moment when the mind begins to make the unconscious balance of the day. What happened, what worked, what did not work. If you let this balance happen on autopilot, what will dominate is the negativity bias I mentioned in other content. The brain will tend to focus on problems, on frustrations, on the gaps between where you are and where you want to be. And it will close the day with this emotional state, which will contaminate sleep, dreams, and consequently, the state in which you will wake up tomorrow. The decree of 17 Dares interrupts this autopilot. It is an intentional intervention at the moment of the day's transition, which redirects the balance from the negative to the constructive, from the past to the future, from scarcity to openness. In many spiritual traditions, the evening is considered a moment of special power. In Judaism, the day begins at sunset, not at dawn. The idea is that the transition from light to darkness, followed by the return of light, represents the cycle of death and rebirth that structures all existence. The evening is the portal between two temporal worlds. It is a moment of transition that, like every moment of transition, carries power for those who use it consciously. In Islam, the Asr prayer happens in the middle of the afternoon before sunset and is considered one of the most valuable prayers of the day, with hadiths describing its importance for the balance of the believer's life. In Brazilian folk Catholicism, the Angelus at 18 is a tradition of pause and prayer that, although few practice today, preserved for centuries the idea that the evening deserves specific spiritual attention. The Decree of 17 Mang starts from this same principle, the evening as a portal, and you as the one who chooses to cross it consciously. The time has come. Let us go to the decree itself. The Decree of 17 Oak has 7 affirmations. The number 7 is not decorative. In numerology and in various spiritual traditions, 7 represents completeness, the full cycle, totality. A decree of 7 affirmations regarding prosperity covers the complete field of what needs to be activated. The mind, the heart, the body, the energetic field, the lineage, the purpose, and the action. Before reading the decree, a fundamental instruction: the decree does not work as mechanical recitation. Each affirmation must be pronounced or thought with total presence, with a pause between them, with the intention of feeling what is being said, not just saying it. If in any affirmation you feel internal resistance, if a voice inside you says it is not true, that is exactly the point of work. Do not ignore the resistance. Note it. It is valuable data on where the blockage lies. The first affirmation is, I am a channel of prosperity, not a final destination. Money flows through me to create good in the world, and I allow it to enter and circulate with freedom. This affirmation undoes the belief that prosperity is selfish accumulation. It repositions you as an instrument, not as an end. And this repositioning reduces the unconscious resistance of those who associate wealth with sin or corruption of character. The second affirmation is, I honor my lineage by overcoming its limits. To prosper is not to distance myself from my own. It is to take my family to higher ground. This affirmation works directly on the unconscious loyalty to the poverty of the lineage that we discussed. It resignifies growth from betrayal to honor, and this resignification must happen repeatedly, with consistency, so that the unconscious begins to rewrite the old directive. The third affirmation is, I recognize the opportunities that reach me today. My mind is open, my eyes are trained to see what I previously ignored. This affirmation activates what neuroscience calls the reticular activating system, which is the part of the brain responsible for filtering what reaches consciousness. When you affirm that you recognize opportunities, you literally instruct the brain to prioritize information related to opportunities in the day's processing. It is like changing the filter of a camera. The fourth affirmation is, I release today any resentment regarding money. I release the anger toward those who owe me, the shame of what I lost, the fear of what I might lack. I am free to receive. This is the most cathartic affirmation of the decree, and it is the most necessary, because resentment regarding money, whether anger toward those who caused you loss, shame over past debts, or fear of repeating financial failures, blocks the field of reception. You cannot receive prosperity with hands closed in a fist of rage. Intentional release opens the field. The fifth affirmation is, I deserve to live in abundance, not by earned merit, but because I am a child of the Creator who created a universe of unlimited abundance. My scarcity is a story. Abundance is the reality. This affirmation works on the belief of worthiness, which is one of the deepest and most common blockages. Most people believe at some level that prosperity is something that must be deserved through achievement. But the teaching of serious spiritual traditions is different. Abundance is the natural state of creation. Scarcity is a contraction caused by fear, by limiting belief, by energetic blockage. You do not need to deserve what is already yours by right of creation. The sixth affirmation is, every action I take today starting from 17 mas carries the intention of prosperity. Every conversation, every decision, every movement is aligned with what I am building. This affirmation connects the spiritual with the practical. Because a decree without action is only words, spiritual prosperity and material prosperity are not separate universes. They meet in aligned action, in the decision made with clarity, in the conversation conducted with intention, in the movement made with purpose. And the seventh affirmation is, I give thanks now for the prosperity that is on its way. I receive it with gratitude before seeing it, because faith is the assurance of things hoped for and the conviction of things not yet seen. This affirmation, inspired directly by Hebrews chapter 11 verse 1, is the closing act of the decree. Anticipated gratitude is not naivety. It is the most powerful vibrational state for attracting results. When you give thanks for something that has not yet arrived, you signal to the field that the result has already been decided, that your faith does not depend on prior evidence to exist. This is the decree of 17, 7 affirmations. It may take 5 to 10 minutes when done with total presence. Like this video now, not just to help the channel, but as a gesture of commitment to yourself that you will apply this decree this very day. Now I must speak about the difference between performing the decree once and creating a consistent practice. Because this difference is exactly what separates those who transform their financial reality from those who experiment with something for a week and give up. The human brain works by repetition, not by intensity. A single intense experience can create a temporary neural marking, but it is consistent repetition, even if each individual session is simpler and less dramatic, that creates the real rewriting of patterns. Neuroscientists call this neuroplasticity, the capacity of the brain to reorganize itself and create new neural pathways in response to new repeated stimuli. Each time you practice the decree with real intention, you are literally sculpting new paths in your brain. Each repetition makes the path wider, easier to travel, more automatic. This means that in the first days, the decree will require conscious effort. It will seem artificial. Resistance may arise, doubt, the sensation that you are deceiving yourself. This is normal. It is the old system resisting the new. It is not a sign that it does not work. It is a sign that it is working because resistance only appears when something is changing. The recommendation is 21 days of daily practice at 17 Rao, not because of the mysticism of the number, but because research on habit formation suggests that this is a reasonable minimum period for a new behavior to begin to automate for most people. After 21 days, the decree ceases to be an effort and becomes a state. It ceases to be a practice and becomes an identity. And it is when it becomes an identity that external results begin to appear more consistently. Because you changed inside, and the outside responds to the inside, always. I must tell you about something that invariably happens when someone begins to work seriously with the field of prosperity. A phenomenon that seems contradictory, but is absolutely predictable for those who understand how systems function. When you begin to change internally, when you begin to install a new directive of abundance in your field, the surrounding system enters into resistance. Things seem to worsen before they improve. Situations arise that test exactly what you are trying to change. An unexpected expense, a deal that falls through, an opportunity that does not materialize the way you expected. This is not punishment. It is a test. It is the universe verifying if your new belief is real or if it is too fragile to sustain pressure. Because a belief that only works when everything is fine is not a belief. It is a preference, and preferences do not move fields. Real belief is that which maintains itself when contrary evidence appears. That which says, I know this will change. I know I am in the process. This turbulence does not define the destination. It is part of the crossing. If you pass through this period of initial turbulence, maintaining the decree, maintaining the practice, maintaining the internal state of openness and gratitude, you will arrive on the other side in a different way. And the other side is where external results begin to reflect the new internal reality you have built. Write in the comments now. Are you willing to commit to 21 days of the 17 decree, Just write yes in the comments, because this public act of commitment is already part of the practice. It is already a declaration, and declarations have weight in the field. Let us speak now about concrete actions that must accompany the decree, because spirituality without action is paralysis, and action without spirituality is exhaustion without direction. The first concrete action is the reorganization of your relationship with money in daily life. This means looking at your numbers regularly, knowing exactly how much enters, how much leaves, and where it goes. Many people who have prosperity blockages unconsciously avoid looking directly at financial numbers. They open the bank with anxiety or avoid opening it for days. This avoidance is a symptom of the blockage, and it feeds the blockage. You cannot transform what you are not willing to face. The second action is to identify and eliminate leaks. I am not just talking about unnecessary expenses, although that is also part of it. I am talking about relationships that drain your resources, about commitments you took on out of guilt and that generate no return, about situations where you continue investing energy and money because you are afraid to admit it is not working. Each leak you close releases energy for what can truly grow. The third action is to create a daily physical act of prosperity. Something small but consistent that signals to your nervous system that you are in construction mode. It could be saving a symbolic amount every day, even if small. It could be dedicating 1 hour per week to the development of a skill that increases your market value. It could be having a commercial conversation you had been postponing. The act itself does not need to be grand. What matters is the consistency and the intention behind it. And the fourth action is the tithe of gratitude. This is a practice that comes from various spiritual traditions, including Judaism and Christianity, and which has both a spiritual and psychological logic that is very solid. When you give, when you destine a part of what you have to something greater than yourself, you break the scarcity mindset at the deepest level. You are saying, with concrete action, that your field is not closed, that you have enough to give, and that you trust that what circulates returns. The tithe does not need to be religious to work. It can be for an institution you believe in, for a person in need, for a social project that makes sense to you. What matters is that it be done with gratitude and with intention, not with a sense of obligation or of purchasing a spiritual result. Reaching the end of this video, I want to leave you with a perspective that integrates everything we have seen here. Prosperity is not a state that you reach and maintain automatically. It is a field that you cultivate every day, with intention, with practice, and with aligned action. The Decree of 17 is not a shortcut. It is a practice of cultivation. Like watering a plant, you do not water once and expect to harvest forever. You water every day, and the plant grows. Your bank account is the visible result of an invisible field that you are cultivating or neglecting. When the field changes, the result changes, not instantaneously in most cases, but progressively, so that in 6 months, in 12 months, you will look back and will not recognize the distance you have traveled. And the hour of 17 is not a detail. It is the moment of the day when you close a cycle and declare intention for the next. It is the inflection point between what was and what will be. Every day you have this window. Every day you can choose to cross it consciously or let it pass on autopilot. The choice is made every day at 17:00, and it begins today. Subscribe to the channel and activate the bell. Share this video with someone you know who is financially stuck and who is seeking a way out that goes beyond conventional personal finance tips. This content may be exactly what that person needed to begin looking at the problem from the right angle. In the comments, tell me, which of the 7 affirmations of the decree generated the most resistance in you? Where did you feel the most discomfort when you read it? This is the most valuable data you can give me, and it is also the most valuable data you can have about yourself. Until the next video. And remember, at 17 today the field is open. What you pronounce in this moment, pronounce with intention and with faith, because the sentence you declare over your life is the only one that truly matters.